Early settlers in Oakville had to be extremely self-reliant when it came to managing the challenges of their day and to complete their daily chores. Needless to say, many of them did come up with ingenious ways to do the jobs and curious gadgets and items on how to aid in the completion of those tasks. Laundry Day, for example, is one of those days that was not a push-button miracle as it is today in the 1850s. The laundry day was always Monday. The fire was set, the water was boiled, and the clothing and linens was prepared and ready to go. Usually it was an outdoor activity, so the clothing got into the buckets, and with these very safe tongs was able to mix around and rinse. The soap, which was made out of wood ashes and animal fat, was then used to scrub off bits and pieces of the dirt. Now, for a further treatment, vinegar was applied for those nasty stains and also to help with the odors of the clothing. Scrub boards were very, very handy and, surprisingly enough, were built in St. Thomas, Ontario. So following the scrubbing and the rinsing, our clothing was hung to dry outside, mostly the linens and the cottons. Woolen goods, such as socks and stockings, were treated to a stretch on these sock stretchers to aid in keeping their shape, their size, and also to help with the drying process. To complete the laundry day, the ironing was started after the drying by many flat irons of various styles and weights that were heated on the fire as well. Surprisingly enough, as the design of these did change to incorporate a vessel to hold water for steam pressing, which was quite a nice advantage to the women of the day. The week proceeded with Tuesday being a mending day for clothing. Wednesdays and Thursdays was left to harvesting, gardening, and weeding. Friday was baking day. Saturday was meal preparation day. And Sunday, of course, was church day and prayer day, followed with some traveling or hosting of large meals. Needless to say, the week went on and on, very similar day, week after week in the year. Stoneware was very important in the kitchens of the 1850s. Either the jugs or crocks were very useful in keeping items cool or stored in safety from any critter that may run through the home. The jugs would hold vinegar or any other liquids, syrups, etc., and keep it cool and safe and fermenting. The over-the-shoulder jug or the moonshine jug were most popular in the homes. Of course, a small jug of whiskey wouldn't hurt either for medicinal purposes as well. The crocks were used for storage of the root vegetables that had been growing throughout the season and would keep well into the winter for the families. Also, pickled vegetables could find a storage in this that was quite airtight with a lid on top. Even commercial ventures would use the crockware to use for some of their elixirs, etc. From a heat point of view, the pig was very, very popular. The pig is a bed warmer for the most part and would be filled with hot water and then put into the bed just prior to the family going to bed. As you can tell from the look of the front of it, the pig name was very appropriate for this little item. In terms of refrigeration, it was the ice was the main piece, and it was a winter occupation completed by the icemen. They would go and saw out blocks of ice from the lakes and rivers, and with the use of tongs and other paraphernalia, would bring these ice blocks to the ice house, or a family would have a small ice pit on their property, and there the ice would be kept wrapped in straw or sawdust until it was used. All in all, the families had to think well ahead of every season, and certainly the stoneware and crockware certainly help make life a little bit easier, and their food products a little safer and longer lasting. During the 1850s, women spent a great deal of time in the kitchen in preparation for meals and also preparing for the next season coming to ensure that the family had enough food and goods on hand. Butter churning was a job for the children. Once the butter was churned, it was placed into many different molds with many different designs and put in the crocks for storage or in the ice pit as well. Many sizes would vary and designs would relate to the seasons or celebrations. Many farmers would design their own butter molds as a logo for the farm, showing something significant to that family. So if a person bought their butter at the market, they knew exactly who had churned it, who had made it, and what farm it had come from. Lighting was essential in the 1850s as well, and there could never be a shortage of candles. Looking at this odd contraption, it's hard to think of it as being a candle mold for a dozen candles. So once the wicks were put in and the wax and fats poured in, then it would stand and hold until the candles were formed and ready for use. It wasn't all main food menus, but certainly there were items which were considered treats for the children. This dehydrator would have apples on it that would end up drying in these particular rings. It would offer a nice quick snack for a child, but it could also be stored for later in the season, rehydrated and used for apple pies or apple tarts. And a special treat for the children was after the harvest season, when the kernels of the corn were dried, and using this little popcorn popper, the kids could have an opportunity, children could have an opportunity to pop their own popcorn for a nice late afternoon snack. The population of Oakville in the 1850s was 1,500 people and growing rapidly. Shipbuilding was the economy driver, and many new trades were setting up businesses to service the growing community. Everyone needed shoes, and everyone who had shoes were looking for different aids to help them with their footwear. The shoemaker would use these anvils and molds to build and repair shoes. The wooden last, as they were called, would also be used in the design of shoes for their customers. The shoe tree would help to keep the shape of those shoes. A pair of shoes would last near a lifetime if they were cared for properly. And of course, for the boot wearer, there was a great deal of difficulty in getting in and out of the boots. So boot jacks were very popular and something that could be made and created by the family themselves. Now, the difference between a shoemaker and a cobbler must be attended to. Shoemakers are the artisans, or those who design the shoes. A cobbler is only the individual who mends shoes and repairs them. To get those two terms and titles mixed up could be very insulting to the shoemaker, let alone hard feelings for the cobbler. Whatever the case is, again, ingenuity came into play. Things were used that were handy, and things were used in cast iron to help produce different things as the community and lifestyle changes occurred.